Siyo, welcome to Cherokee Stories. I'm your host, Phil Bange. Today on our show, I'm going to compile several of our past stories and put them into one show, just for your convenience. And I'd also like to make a few announcements. There's 3 meetings in the Pacific Northwest this weekend with Donnie Saloli. The first meeting will be Saturday, March 10th at 10:30 until 1 in Portland, Oregon, Wilshire United Methodist Native American Fellowship. Address is 3917 Northeast Shaver Street, Portland, Oregon 97212. That's with our Mount Hood Cherokees. Our second meeting is in Oregon, in Eugene. That'll be again, Saturday, March 10th at 4 p.m. until 7. Address is Lane Community College Longhouse, 4000 East 30th Avenue, Eugene, Oregon, 97405. And that will be with our Eugene area Cherokees. Then our third meeting is March 11th with our Cherokee community of Puget Sound at 2 p.m. until 4. This will be at St. Luke's Memorial Episcopal Church at 3615 North Gove Avenue, Tacoma, Washington, 98407. Now let's go to our stories. The Crayfish and the Fox Race. Once the crayfish was out of the water, walking around in the mud near the water. The fox was sitting very near him. They began to talk, and the fox asked the crayfish, "How can you get out of the water and walk so fast upon the ground?" The crayfish answered, "I'm very fast. If I had to run a race, I could do so right now." The fox said, "What can you do to run a race? You're so slow that you just crawl." "Well, if you don't believe me, I'll run you a race," said the crayfish. "All right," said the fox. "Let's do." The crayfish said, "All right, we'll run across 7 ridges, and whoever reaches the 7th one first will whoop." "All right," said the fox. So they got up and went to the top of a high mountain from where they would have to go down and up 7 times. So they started the race. They were standing even with each other on the starting line when they started. The crayfish was rather slow getting off. The fox was ahead of him, all but for his tail. So they whooped and got started. The fox's tail flew right by the crayfish, who grasped the very end of the tail and got upon it. The fox was racing as hard as he could, and he was really the only one in the race because the crayfish was riding his tail. And when he got to the 7th ridge, and the fox whooped, there beside him whooped the crayfish. The fox said to the crayfish, "You certainly are fast." "I told you so," said the crayfish. "I'm very fast, and I race frequently." The fox said, "We'll race some more. 7 more rounds." So they turned around to run again, and the crayfish got upon the tail again. When they arrived at the 7th ridge, the fox whooped, and right beside him whooped the crayfish. On their 7th round, about halfway, the crayfish nearly fell off the tail, and he decided to seat himself upon the tail more firmly. As he was trying to seat himself better, he accidentally grabbed the bony part of the tail. So they arrived at the 7th and last ridge, and the fox whooped, turned around to the crayfish and said, "You are cheating me." "Certainly not," said the crayfish. "That's how fast I am." The fox said, "I felt it when you pinched my tail, and I knew you were upon my tail." So they went round and around and around, and the fox chasing the crayfish. But the crayfish couldn't get away, and the fox chomped him up and ate him. Story by Siyo. The rabbit, the mink, and the woodpecker. There were ducks in a large river. On the bank watching them was the rabbit. After a while the mink arrived and said, "Sometimes I just get so very hungry that I could go catch one of those ducks," he said. "Let's see you," said the rabbit. So the mink dived into the water until he reached the ducks, seized one of them by the leg and pulled it through the water until he reached the bank where the rabbit was. "See what I can do?" said the mink. The rabbit said, "Well, I can do that too." "Let's see you go get one," said the mink. So the rabbit dived in. But he couldn't go underwater all the way to where the ducks were. He had to poke his nose above water. When he reached the ducks, he seized one by the leg, but he frightened them all, and they all flew away. The one that he had hold of also flew away and pulled him through the air. The duck carried the rabbit away off across a mountain. While he was flying over the mountain, the rabbit lost his grip and fell down into a hollow tree. The rabbit remained imprisoned in there. After a while, he heard the woodpecker pecking upon the outside of the tree. "Keep pecking at it and make the hole large, because I'm a beautiful animal, and the children like me and like to play with me," said the rabbit. So the woodpecker worked very hard and made a large hole. When the rabbit looked out of the hole, he leaped out and ran away. When he went through the hole, almost all of his hair was scraped off, but he whooped as he ran off. Woohoo! By Gano. The origin of corn. At one time there was a very old woman who had 2 grandsons. These 2 grandsons were always hunting. They hunted deer and wild turkeys. The family always had plenty to eat. Later on, after many hunting trips, when they got ready to go hunting early in the morning, they were cleaning their guns. When their grandmother noticed that they were ready to go hunting, she thought to herself, "They're getting ready to go hunting." So she went to them where they were cleaning their guns outside the fenced-in yard. When the grandmother came to them, they were busily cleaning their guns. She said to them, "I see that you're getting ready to go hunting." And they replied, "Yes, we're going to hunt deer today." "Well, when you come back, I'll have the most delicious of dinners ready. I'm going to cook all the old meat, and I'm going to put it into something they call corn, and we're going to drink the broth from it," she said to the young men. "All right," said the young men. When they got to the forest, they wondered about the word corn that she had used. They didn't know what that was, and they wondered where she got it. I wonder where corn comes from, they asked each other. When we get home, we'll find out, they said. They killed a deer, shouldered it, and went home. When they got home, they saw the large pot bubbling. They noticed that with the meat, corn in small ground-up pieces was boiling in there. If anyone had ever seen it before, he would have known what it was. But then these boys had never seen it before. They asked their grandmother, "What is that you have in the pot?" "It's called grits." They didn't ask her where she got it. When they ate their dinner, the young men had the most delicious meal they had ever had. After dinner, they told their grandmother what a superb meal she had cooked. The grandmother was pleased. "Well, tomorrow at noon we will have some more delicious food." The next day the young men went hunting again, but the family already had some dried turkeys, so the grandmother cooked these dried turkeys and cooked grits with them. When the young men returned home that evening with their bag of turkeys, dinner was announced. With this meat were these grits, and the young men said, "This is the best meal that we have ever had." They thanked their grandmother again and told her that her food was delicious. The grandmother was very pleased and said, "I'm so happy that you said what you did." Next day the young men again went to the forest. While they were in the forest, one of them kept thinking about the corn. "This thing she calls corn. She said that today about noon she is going to start cooking again." And one to the other, and the other said, "Yes, that's what she said." "I'll go hide somewhere and see where she gets it if you want me to," said one of them. "All right," said the other. "You had better go before she begins cooking." So one of them went. This thing called corn was troubling this young man, so he hid behind the smokehouse and watched for his grandmother. Later on, the grandmother came carrying a large pan and went into the smokehouse. The young man peeped through a small hole. When the grandmother got into the smokehouse, she put the pan under where she was standing. Then she struck both of her sides, and when she hit her sides, grits fell from every part of her body. They fell until the pan became full. When she came out of the smokehouse, she carried this pan of grits, dumped them into the pot, and began cooking them. That's what the young man learned. And when he went back to his brother and told him about it, when he arrived where his brother was, his brother asked him what he had learned. He said to his brother, "This delicious food of grandmother's that we have been eating comes from her body. She shakes it off from all over her body. She puts a pan under her. She strikes her sides, and then it falls from her body and falls into the pan until it is full. And that is what we have been eating," he told his brother. His brother said, "We really eat an unsavory thing, don't we?" So they decided that they would not eat any more of it when they got home. When they arrived home, their grandmother had dinner ready. Again, she had the same kind of food. They both didn't eat much. "What's wrong? You're not eating very much." "Don't you like me?" said their grandmother. The young men said, "No, we're just too tired to eat much from walking so much in our hunting." "But I think that you don't like me," she said. "Or maybe you learned something somewhere, and that's the reason that you don't want to eat," they were told. At that moment, grandmother became ill. She knew that they had found out her secret. The grandmother took to bed, and she began to talk to them about what they should do. "Now that I'm in bed, I'm going to die." She told them all about what was going to happen in the future. "When you bury me, you must put a large fence around me and bury me just right out there. Something will grow from right in the middle of my grave. This thing will grow up to be tall. It will flower at the top, and in the lower part will come out beautiful tassels, and inside of them will be kernels. It will bear 2 or 3 ears of corn with corn silk on them. You must leave the ears alone and take care of the plant. Put a fence around it. The ears will dry. They will be very white.